Right. Hopefully everybody is in and settled. And it's good to see so many of you joining. Thank you for taking the time out of your days or evenings to be here. So welcome to the online journalism and publishing open day. I'm Simon Hinde. I'm the Programme Director of Journalism and Publishing at London College of Communication, and I'll be talking about our courses, and there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. So let's get going. So these are the courses I'll be talking about. MA Journalism, which is a course with pathways, and the three pathways, you can see them listed there: arts and lifestyle journalism, audio video journalism, social justice journalism. And I'll explain a bit later on what we mean by a pathway course and how that works and what that would be, what the experience of studying on a pathway course would be like. And then we also have MA Publishing, which I will be talking about as well. So as I say, I'm Programme Director of Journalism and Publishing, so I'm essentially the head of that part of the college, and we have a bunch of undergraduate courses in journalism and magazine publishing, and the postgraduate courses that I'm going to be talking about today. So first of all, who we are. We're London College of Communication. We're part of University of the Arts London, which I guess most of you will probably know. Consists of several colleges. So there's LCC, London College of Communication, our college, London College of Fashion, Central St Martin's, and then the art colleges of Camberwell, Chelsea, and Wimbledon. So if you're from London or if you visited London, there's quite a high chance you might have run into one of our buildings. Quite a lot of UAL buildings around and about London. LCC is in the Elephant and Castle, just south of the river. So very handily central, in fact. We are a college that focuses on design, well, communication, as the name suggests, but media, design, and screen. We have those three schools, and the journalism publishing course is in the design school. Again, that's in the media school, I should say, and I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. So UAL is a specialist institution in a way. It often describes itself as an art and design university, but we do more than that. So we do obviously the kind of things happen in the media school. There's a certain amount of business. There's a business school in London College of Fashion. There's some stage courses, one thing and another. But we're not a university that covers, the whole range of things from law to geography. I think that's a strength because most of the people you meet are likely to be involved in some sphere of activity that might touch on yours in some way. Because if you're involved in the media, as we are, design relates to that, screen relates to that. So there's a kind of a sense of a community of people who are engaged in similar related activities. So, as I say, London College of Communication has three schools: design, screen, and media. We're the media school. The media school has three programs: photography, communications and media, and journalism and publishing. So photography has, as you'd imagine, photography courses, photojournalism courses, has kind of art photography, but also commercial photography. Media communications has advertising, PR, course called media communications and media, which deals with sort of broad aspects of media, public relations, marketing, that kind of thing. And then we have journalism and publishing, which has the courses I mentioned, the undergraduate courses in journalism and in magazine journalism and publishing, and the postgraduate courses that we're interested in today in journalism and in publishing. So within the media school, you can see quite a kind of commonality of interests, lots of opportunities to collaborate because, out there in the professional world, people who work in journalism will often be working with people who are designers or perhaps working in advertising or marketing or public relations or photographers. So there's quite a sense that we're involved in a range of very, very related activities. So the journalism publishing program has the courses that I mentioned. We're a team of 16 full-time staff. I'll talk more about the staff expertise and background later on. And we have about 400 students in the programme. And we have our own section in the building with specialist dedicated rooms and technicians who support us. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. So we consider ourselves very future facing. You know, I often find myself reflecting on my own career in journalism, which started quite a long time ago, before the internet was really a major factor in people's lives. And the jobs I did then were very, very different from the jobs I did maybe 10 or 15 years later, when the internet and social media had come along, and we were thinking a lot about promoting your work on social media, making videos for YouTube, putting it on the web rather than just putting it in a print publication. So the world changed rapidly in the course of my career, and it continues to change. One of the big things we're thinking about at the moment is artificial intelligence, AI. You've probably read about the effect that's having on our world. I was talking to a couple of our graduates a couple of weeks ago who were working on a newspaper, and they said, yeah, we're using AI. So AI is there, it's already in the workplace. So the way I see our jobs as staff on these courses and what we have to do for you is not just teach you the way the industry is now, although that's important, but we have to help you to be able to thrive in the industry for how long your careers will be, 30 years, 40 years, who knows how long they'll be, and who knows what the industry will look like in 10, 20, 30 years time. Nobody knows. It's impossible to say. So we have to help you develop the core skills, but also the attitude of mind that will allow you to adapt to what comes along, and also, you know, to lead change where change is needed. You know, my students, former students who are now in industry, started to work with AI. They will, I hope, be at the forefront of helping journalism to use AI in a kind of meaningful and positive way, and, you know, use it as a tool for creating good journalism. Our intention is that all of you, if you come on our courses, everybody who studies on our courses will be the kind of people who are able to adapt and make change where change is needed. We're global. We're a very global university. We're a global program. We have students who are local, but also students who are from all over the world, many different countries from Europe and beyond. It's a great thing. It really enhances the teaching experience, I think. You know, if you're doing a seminar talking about press freedom, and you've got students from London and Paris and America and Russia and China in the room, Singapore, wherever it may be, they bring their own knowledge and experience of the way things are in their home countries, and that becomes a very enriching discussion. So we're very proud of the global nature of our student body. I sometimes get to travel on university business to various places. I went to New York, and there's a whole community of UAL alumni there. So the globalness of LCC, of UAL, creates an immediate network for you wherever you are. So that seems like a really powerful and important thing, because of course the industries that we're thinking about, media, publishing, those are global industries. So our global outlook, I think, is one thing that will help prepare you for the professional world when if you join us, when you graduate from our courses. Staff expertise. A lot of our staff, myself included, as I mentioned, have worked in journalism and worked in publishing. It's quite common for people to have had careers of 10, 20 years in the media and then come and teach. And that's obviously very valuable, because we see ourselves as being very focused on industry, very practical, and the expertise of staff is a really important part of that. We also have what we call associate lecturers, who are essentially kind of freelance and part-time lecturers who may be working now in industry and come and spend time with the students. So through that, we can make sure that the knowledge that we are imparting to you is up to date and is taking full account of the way the industry is changing. But as well as the practical focus of our staff, we take teaching very seriously as a thing. We don't just kind of put people up in front of students and hope they make the best of it. All of our staff have done a teaching qualification, a postgraduate certificate in teaching, because it's one thing to know about a subject, it's another thing to teach it. So we're very committed to developing the practice of teaching. Many of our staff, or some of our staff, have come through a more traditional academic route where they've perhaps done a PhD, and maybe they're more theoretically based, and those are important aspects of our courses, which when I come to talk about the courses in detail, I'll tell you more about that. Some of our staff have done PhDs while they are working in industry or while they've been teaching with us. So we have, I think, a good balance between the practice, the industry focus, and the academic, the theoretical rigor that is important when we think about these courses. We're not a training school. We want you to think with a degree of critical depth about what happened in the world of journalism, what happens in the world of publishing. Not all of what is done in journalism, not all of what is done in publishing are good things. There are many aspects of those industries that are worthy of criticism, informed critique, and will help you develop those critiques through your research and through your writing. And we hope that when you then move into those industries, you will be able to critique them from within, and again, hopefully bring about change. So hands-on, we are very focused on doing. You will be doing pretty much from day one. Whichever of the courses you join, you'll be producing journalism, you'll be working on the practical side of publishing, you'll learn how books are made, both the physical and digital side of printing. You'll be out there, if you're a journalism student, interviewing people, writing stories, or making filmed or audio pieces and publishing them. The only way in which you get good at these things is by doing them. So that hands-on side is super important. We're very well set up for that. We've got fantastic print workshops where, I was in there yesterday with some of my journalism students. We were making a magazine about an art exhibition that was on at Tate Modern called World in Common, an exhibition of African art. The students interviewed the artists, wrote pieces, and we printed the magazine in our workshop, and they were binding it, stitching it, and boxing it and getting it ready for distribution. So those workshops are really fantastic. The technicians who work in those workshops are just really interesting and useful people who will help you understand and develop practical skills. We've got podcasting studios, audio journalism studios, video journalism studios. So lots of spaces where you will be able to develop the practical skills of your chosen profession. Industry links are very, very important to us. We are very fortunate to be in the greatest media city in the world. People from New York might disagree, but one of the greatest media cities in the world. We have obviously the BBC here, other television companies. We have the regional offices of Meta, Facebook, Google, Twitter, X as it now is. There's a very thriving independent magazine sector. We're one of the big book publishing capitals of the world, and so on and so forth. And we have very good contacts in all of those industries. Often it's our graduates, perhaps it's the staff who work there, and we make sure that those industry links are used to the advantage of students in various different ways. So typical thing is to bring guest speakers in. There's probably no week goes by within the journalism publishing program where there isn't an industry speaker of one sort or another coming in and talking about some aspect of their career or working with students on a project. So that's very important. We do a lot of what we call industry briefs, where people will come in from industry and set a task for students to do, create a brief and say, we want you to make a magazine about this, produce some content on that, and the students will go and do that and work with the industry partner to make that work. So the industry side of things is important. We have an event every year called Meet the Experts, where we get 25 or so industry experts who come in and share their knowledge with students. We do this kind of speed dating thing where we have 2 or 3 experts on each table, 5 or 6 students, and the students move around, everybody meets everybody. We have, the last one was just last month, we had people from the BBC and from Sky, and from a host of magazines, from Penguin Books, from podcasting companies, from marketing and PR companies, national newspapers. A lot of them are our graduates, in fact. And it was an opportunity for students to meet those people, make contacts, understand more about the industries that they want to work in. In a couple of cases, students got job offers through that, which is great. So our proximity to the world of media, the world of publishing, is something that we really take great advantage of for the benefit of students. And similarly, employability. I mean, we know that all of you want to get a job at the end of all this. And that's something we think very hard about. We have very good employability statistics. There's a kind of survey that's done of all courses, and our program has very high employability. A lot of students are getting jobs quite quickly after graduating, and they're in, I'll talk more about the kind of places where they go, but we do employability in lots of different ways, through, as I've mentioned, bringing industry people in to meet students, build that kind of networking. We have special sessions on employability within the courses. There's a department of the college which focuses on that kind of thing, and they'll come and help with things like CV writing, or promoting yourself on social media, or building a brand, all that sort of stuff. So employability is very, very present in our courses. And people have said to me, actually, after the Meet the Experts evening, one of the guy who runs a podcasting company who I used to work with a long time ago at Sky came up to me and said, I do a lot of these events, but your students are the most industry ready of all the ones I've met, which was a really nice thing to hear, because it's something we do take very seriously. And by industry ready, he just meant that, and he has employed students straight from Meet the Experts. He was confident that the students he met were ready to go into the workplace and do the jobs that he wanted them to do. So that's something that we think of as very important and very significant in what we're doing here. So collaboration, I mentioned a little bit about collaboration earlier on, the sense that there's the opportunity to collaborate with industry partners through industry briefs, and that is something which is happens often through, we have a thing called the collaborative unit, which is a unit in all postgraduate courses in the college, and certainly in MA journalism, the way that unit is delivered is through bringing in industry partners. In other courses, there are often opportunities to collaborate with students from other courses on a particular project. We sometimes, last year, and we'll probably do it again this year, I did a project for all MA students in the media school where we made a food magazine, a magazine about the global food crisis, about hunger, climate change, how the war in Ukraine is affecting the supply of food, poverty in this country, the position of migrants in this country who struggle to find food because of their financial circumstances, those sorts of issues. And it was a collaborative thing, which we had journalism students, we had students from publishing, we had photography students from advertising, PR courses, all working together to produce this magazine. So those kind of collaborative opportunities are, I think, very rich and very valuable in terms of just developing your own knowledge about how the world works and how other disciplines work, how advertising works, how photography works, how PR works. But they're also, they're good on the social level as well, because you get to meet new people, meet people on other courses, develop, friendships or people who might be good to know when you all go out into the world of work. So our spaces and facilities, I said a little bit about this already. So I mentioned our print workshops, which are fantastic. We've got a big professional offset litho print machine, which can print 4-color magazines. That's the machine that we were working on yesterday for the magazine about the exhibition I mentioned. There's letterpress, which is another type of printing, screen printing, reso, all sorts of different printing machines, and technicians who will help you to, they are really, really good at kind of helping you to develop and deliver the projects that you want to develop and deliver. And those may be things you do through the courses, but often people use the print workshops for their own personal projects, and the print guys are very, very happy to help with that. So, students do zines is a very characteristic thing, and they print them in the print workshops, and that's all good. We also have, within the journalism publishing program, as again I mentioned, we have video studio, green screen video studio. We have audio journalism stroke podcasting rooms. We have, it's not a space exactly, but it's a facility, I suppose. So we have a magazine and website and social media channels called Artifact. It's publicly visible, and MA journalism students will work on that. So you will be producing a print magazine, an issue of Artifact with your work in it. You'll be publishing work on the website and promoting it on social media, which are really valuable skills for the industry. We have the library, which is fantastic. It always, the students love the library. Whenever we do surveys about student satisfaction, the library comes out very, very high, because it's very well stocked, but also the people in the library staff are immensely helpful, and they can be persuaded to spend a bit of time with you if you're working on a research project, and they'll help you develop knowledge through that. We have the digital space, which is a room full of very highly specified computers, Macs and PCs, with software, the Adobe suite, After Effects. So really all the software you might need if you were making a film, or you want to edit a film, or you wanted to do special effects or 3D, or all kinds of software that designers use. I don't know anything about, but those spaces are available. You can just go and sit at the computer and use that kit, which is a really useful thing to be able to do. They also run sessions where they'll teach you After Effects or Adobe Premiere, whatever it might be, or they'll teach you sort of advanced techniques in those software packages. So those are really valuable too. So the specialist spaces and facilities, I mean, I think I've spoken about most of those already. I haven't mentioned the archives, which are super interesting. We have the archive of a very well-known journalist from the last century called Philip Knightley, who although he was Australian, he worked mostly in the UK, and he reported on the Vietnam War and all sorts of quite major events in 20th century history. And we have the archive of Stanley Kubrick, the film director, who you might know as director of 2001, Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut, The Shining, of course, and that's immensely interesting. It's a research facility, really, but it's possible to book time in there and find out more about those people's work. And some students have based dissertations and research projects on that. So student and alumni successes. So a lot of our students are doing very well. So MA journalism, which is a course I teach on. So we have students, one of our students has just become the editor of ArtNet, which is really probably the biggest UK art publication. Another is the editor of Plaster magazine, which is slightly more niche, but very, very good, kind of emerging art magazine and website. We have a student at Dazed. We have students in 1 or 2 newspapers. We have another student on Nat Geo, for those interested in travel journalism. One of our graduates, when I say students, I mean graduates, of course. One of our graduates is head of lifestyle and entertainment at Huffington Post. Couple of students work in a really interesting company called Quark Studios, where they produce research influencers and write reports about influencers for publishing businesses. So lots of kind of interesting things. Some students have gone into PR. One of our graduates is in fact, 2 of our graduates work in communications at a record label called Defected, which some of you might know if it's a electronic music, house music label. Got another student, graduate, I should say, who is working for a PR company called Pure PR, doing design, public relations, but she also has a column in the Independent on Sunday writing about design, and so on and so forth, really. So there are lots of those on the publishing side. The kind of things that students go into are entry level. They go into most of the major publishers, editorial assistant, production assistant, marketing assistant, rights. Some go into smaller indie presses and magazines. We have of people, because the course has been going for quite a long time, so some of them are now quite senior. So the marketing director at Bats for Books, the literary marketing director at Little Brown, production lead at Dorling Kindersley, the art director of Tatler was one of our graduates, the head of media strategy at Dazed is one of our graduates in publishing, PR director at Thames and Hudson. And again, lots of different successes within the fields of journalism and publishing. Some of our students, graduates, go into what I'd call kind of ancillary jobs, where they might work in things that aren't exactly journalism or publishing, but they might be marketing or communications or public relations. And because the skills that you learn on these courses, on our courses, are very transferable to a wide range of industry opportunities. So enrich your learning experience. I guess what I talk about here really is the opportunity to do extracurricular things. I mentioned the food magazine that we've done for the last 2 or 3 years. In fact, there are a lot of things of that kind. There are student societies. We have a magazine society within the department that students run, where they talk about magazines and the making of magazines and magazines that they like. So there are lots of opportunities if you want to sort of dive into things above and beyond the course. I mean, we respect the fact that many of you will probably be working while you're with us, because that's now quite common. So your time is, you have to manage your time, but the opportunities are there for those of you who can find that time. So I'll talk about MA Journalism now in a bit more detail. So MA Journalism is one course with 3 pathways. So what that means essentially is that some of the time the 3 pathways are being taught together, and some of the time they're being taught separately. So the 3 pathways are arts and lifestyle journalism, social justice journalism, and audio video journalism. So the way the course works is in term 1, you do a couple of units where everybody's taught together. One is a sort of basic audio video unit, because even if you're not in the audio video pathway, it's important that you're comfortable with making the basics of video, that you're able to make a short film and film it effectively and cut it, because journalism is quite multidisciplinary in that way. So everybody does that. Everybody does a unit on the basics of journalism, where we think about interviewing, journalistic research, the structure of journalism, that kind of stuff. Alongside that, you will be doing a more theoretically based pathway, and there's a choice here. You can do either arts and lifestyle, or you can do social justice, and from next year there'll be an audio video theory option as well. And that's more, if you like, traditionally academic, in the sense that you're reading texts, discussing them, writing essays, and that's quite a long unit, and that's really one of the places where you start to develop a sort of sense of criticality, really, about the journalistic disciplines that you are involved in. Then after that, there are separate practice units for each of the 3 strands: arts and lifestyle, social justice, and audio video. So you'll spend, that's happening at the moment, in fact, this term, you spend a lot of time studying that specific discipline. So I teach the arts and lifestyle practice unit, for example, and we sort of dig into different types of arts and lifestyle journalism, music journalism, travel journalism, longer form writing, and similar or equivalent things happen in social justice journalism and arts and video journalism strands. We're not a news-based course. We're thinking more about longer form journalism. We're thinking about journalism, not just about the delivery of information, but also journalism, creating journalism that has a kind of aesthetic behind it as well. It's kind of delivers pleasure, and thinking perhaps about being slightly experimental in what you do. I know on the audio video pathway, they go out and shoot with drones and that kind of stuff. So we are helping you to do something which hopefully is authentic to you and nurtures a sense of creativity within yourselves, as well as being something that fits within the broad kind of commercial disciplines of journalism as well. So you want to be able to go out and get work doing what you're doing. So we're thinking about it in both those ways. Then the course moves on to a joint unit where the 3 pathways come together, and you work on, as I mentioned earlier on, Artifact, which is our media brand. So we have a print magazine, 64-page magazine. We have a website which has had more than 1 million page views in its time, and social media channels: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And you'll work on those, and that's very much the experience of working in a professional newsroom. You'll produce an issue of the magazine, you'll edit and publish content on the websites, you'll promote it on social media. Then there's also the collaborative unit alongside those 2, where, again, as I mentioned, you are working on industry briefs, essentially. So industry partners will come in, set you a brief, and you will deliver that, and they'll give you feedback on it. And again, that's quite a sort of making type unit. And then we move on to the final major project, which is essentially producing journalism. It might be written journalism, it might be audio video journalism, it might be a mix, and you'll work one-to-one with a supervisor on a project. You'll come up with an idea for a piece or possibly several pieces. Quite often students do 3 pieces. It's typically the total length is about 7,000 words. There's also a reflective and critical report that you do alongside that. And that runs from sort of mid-May to the summer. And then, as I guess you know, this is a 15-month 4-term MA. So rather than finishing in September, you come back in September and you work with your supervisor again, and you deliver your final major project in December. So it's slightly longer than some other courses you might be looking at. So audio video journalism, I think I've talked about that in the overall description of the MA. You'll have obviously an audio video practice unit, and you will be doing longer form packages, podcasts. Students often do longer form video pieces, and again, sort of developing a kind of creative and critical approach to all of that. Social justice, we'll be looking at aspects of journalism as it deals with, for example, the refugee crisis. We have within our department the Refugee Journalism Project, which provides mentoring and support for displaced journalists. So the people who work on that have a great deal of expertise in that field. Climate change is obviously very important. Journalism that addresses social problems and promotes change, I guess, would be a fairly good way of describing that pathway of the course. Then MA Publishing is, again, a very practical course about publishing media. It's creative, it's entrepreneurial. You get the chance to specialize in magazine or book publishing at a certain point through the assignments that you choose in the units. You do lots of practical things. So in term 1, you start off by doing a context unit where you understand the sort of the theoretical context, and you understand the structure of the creative industries. And alongside that, you're looking at the commercial frameworks of books and magazines. So how content is developed, how it's sourced, how publishers go about finding things to publish. You'll be looking at a unit on audience, which is very important. You know, sort of how do you find an audience for the things you want to publish? How do you reach that audience? Thinking about diverse audiences. Publishing, a bit like journalism, does suffer from a lack of diversity, and that's something we think very hard about, both in terms of the audiences that it reaches, but also in terms of the people who get jobs in those industries. We have a very diverse student body, and we work very hard to encourage the industry to understand the values of diversity, and I think we do a very good job of that, actually. Lots of our students do get jobs. Then we have the collaborative unit, where you'll be working with other people to manage a publishing project, essentially. So you have a lot of kind of autonomy over what that project might be, but a lot of students will make a book or a magazine as a group and produce it in our print workshops and bind it. I've seen some amazingly clever and creative projects, and very beautiful projects that have been produced in that unit. Then there's an innovation unit, which is thinking about particularly about the digital side of things. So you think about creating a publishing project that's specifically digital. Professional practice and enterprise. So that is particularly looking at employability, professional opportunities, careers. Of industry guests will come and talk about how people get a break into the publishing industry. And then you move on to your final major project, and essentially you're exploring an industry facing publishing issue, question, or problem. And again, you have a great deal of autonomy to choose that. Some students work on more traditional dissertations, sort of a long form theoretical piece of writing. Some people work on research projects whereby they develop an artifact, a magazine or a book or a prototype of something, or a business strategy research document. Essentially, you get to choose what it is you want to do, and you work, again, one-to-one with a supervisor who will guide you in your choices around research and methodologies, and if you're making something, the actual production of that thing. And it starts off, as does the MA journalism unit, it starts off with taught sessions where everybody's together, developing ideas, thinking about the possibilities, and then at a certain point you're allocated a supervisor. The supervisors are members of staff here generally, and you'll work with that person on a more individual basis. So those are some contacts for questions I haven't really covered, because they're not my fields of expertise really, but admissions, accommodation, student support, scholarships, fees, and general inquiries. So I'll leave that there for a second, so you can either screenshot it or photograph it or note it down to anybody that you particularly want to talk to. I think my colleague Becky has put a couple of short films in the chat. Do have a look at those if you haven't done already, because they give you a sort of flavour of LCC and a flavour of the media school, which might be interesting for you to see. And I think now, if there are questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, Becky.
Hi, that's great. Thank you. Yes, I'll be popping those links to those videos in shortly. Just to point out as well, if you have any questions, just go to the Q&A box at the bottom and pop them in there, and we'll just start going through them. So first question for you, Simon, is what does a typical timetable look like for the courses on this program?
It's a very good question. As I mentioned actually earlier in the talk, we are very cognizant of the fact that some students, possibly the majority of students, will be working while they're with us. So we try and make sure that there is time and predictability for students to do that. So we try and make sure that in any given term, the timetable is the same week in, week out. We don't bring you in on Friday one week and Tuesday the following week, because that's hard to manage. And we try and have the teaching in large discrete blocks. So you might only be in a couple of days, but you might be in all day on those days, rather than coming in every single day and doing a couple of hours. What that might look like is you might be in on a morning in the week having a 3-hour workshop session with someone like me, where you're thinking about the aspects of the practice of journalism, and then you might have another session in the afternoon where you're doing something a bit more theoretical, which is a bit more like a lecture and seminar type thing. So you will find, whichever course you're on, that there are days when you don't have to be in for exactly those reasons, to allow people to work if they need to work, and also because we don't want to bring people in. London's a big place, the cost of travel is not insignificant, so we think about those things as well. But you're free, of course, to come in every day if you want, because the library is there for people to work in, the digital space is there. There are plenty of places where you can sit and work, or just come and have a cup of coffee, whatever it is you want to do. Alongside the taught sessions, there is an expectation you do independent work. So if you're on a journalism course with me, I would set you a every couple of weeks, I'll say, go and write me a story, find a person, interview them, write a profile about that person. And you do that out of class, give it to me, and I'll give you feedback on it, and we might discuss it in class. So there's a lot of independent study. And typically, as the course goes on, the independent side becomes bigger until you're doing your final major project, which is nearly all independent work at that point. You're checking in with your supervisor every so often and getting feedback from them, but most of the time you are working independently. So that's broadly, at a high level, how it works.
That's great. Thank you so much for covering that. And a question through about the application process. Would you be able to take us through what's required? And if you know the deadline, would you be able to share that, please?
I don't know the deadline, but what's required is you apply through, there's a link on the course pages for the appropriate courses, and the courses have got different specifics about what they want. So MA journalism will tend to ask for a portfolio. Now, what you put in that portfolio will depend on who you are and where you are. We do have some students who come who've done some journalism, and they'll give links to the work they've done. Other students might put in their portfolio essays they've written on their undergraduate course, or even fiction they've written in some cases, or a blog that they keep. So we're not expecting people to have lots of journalistic experience. We just want a bit more of a sense of who you are. Publishing doesn't require a portfolio, so it's a more simple and traditional route of providing the information in the personal statements and referees. I don't know the deadline. I'm hoping you do, Becky, but if you don't, I'm sure we can find it out and pass it on to the students.
Yes, the deadline is beginning of April, so you've got about a month to get things together. I'd recommend sooner rather than later, but yes, April is the deadline.
Yeah, good advice. Don't sleep on it, as they say.
Yes, exactly. Give yourself time. Next question is, do we develop photography, video, and audio skills if we do the social justice course?
You will certainly develop audio video skills, because they are part of the first unit that I mentioned. The focus of those pathways is written. The focus of the arts and lifestyle and social justice pathways is written journalism, but there will be nothing stopping you. If you wanted to, you could apply to the audio video course and do social justice related work through that. So it depends really on, and people see themselves in different ways. Some people see themselves as, I'm a social justice person, and that's what I want to focus on. Some people see themselves as, I'm a filmmaker and I want to focus on social justice things. So all those things are possible within the framework, the pathways of the course. So what you might do is, you could, if you were to apply to the social justice pathway, and then when you were interviewed, you'd have the opportunity to discuss it with your interviewer, and they'd be able to give you some guidance based on your particular circumstances about what the best route for you would be within the framework of the course. So we're quite flexible about how these things work. So we'll, within reason, we will find something that works for whatever it is that you want to do.
That's great. Thank you so much. Our next question is about portfolio specifically. Do you have any advice on what you like to see, especially for a student who hasn't done a particularly creative bachelor's? So what should they show you?
It doesn't matter too much. Don't get too hung up on it, I think, would be my advice. It's an opportunity to, if you've done a non-creative bachelor's, I don't know what that might be, but it might be quite appropriate to put in some essays that you've written as part of that. If you've done the blogging, sometimes students, they blog, or they write reviews of albums or books, or they do stuff on social media. Sometimes, we quite often have students who've done a bit of, social media influencing about their travels. Any of that kind of stuff, really. We're not really judging you on the portfolio. It's just not. It's more of a way to get to know you. So we're not going to sort of say, oh, that's terrible and non-journalistic and no good at all, because our job is to teach you those things, not to kind of judge you at the point of entry. So it's really an opportunity for you to say to us, this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I've done so far. And don't sort of fear that we're going to kind of sneer at it or reject it. We won't. It's really something to kind of an icebreaker to introduce you, so that when you're interviewed, there's something for us to discuss.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Two more questions and then we'll conclude for the evening. Do you have any examples of any final projects that have been completed? Are they multimedia projects or something like research?
I mean, I haven't got them I can show, but I can talk about the kind of things. I don't know if we're talking about journalism or publishing. On journalism, there's a very wide range of things. We do have students who do multimedia things, who will maybe make a film and do some writing alongside it, or vice versa. We have students who do entirely written projects, quite common. We have students who've made podcasts or filmed pieces. We had a student last year who made a website. We had a student one year who designed a gallery exhibition, which is an interesting project. So we're very open to people who want to do challenging and different forms. So it doesn't have to be just a straightforward written piece or straightforward film piece. Mixtures of things are fine. Creative, imaginative and creative solutions are welcomed. On the publishing side, similarly, I think you have the option to do a traditional dissertation, a more theory-based piece. You can make something, make a book, make a magazine, and obviously write a kind of critical reflection upon it. Or you can look at a particular business problem within the publishing industry and examine that and talk about how that business problem might be addressed and resolved. So a wide range of things. I mean, we are a creative university, and we encourage creativity in students. And if students want to do things that are unusual and haven't been done before, our starting position is we will help you to do that, rather than no, you can't do that because it's never been done before. We've never, certainly on the journalism side, which I know best because I teach on it, but I'm sure this is true of the publishing side as well. We've never stopped a student from doing something. We've never said, no, you can't do that. We've always found a way of making it work.
That's great. Thank you. I've also just posted a link in the chat to our graduate showcase, which shows some of the student work. It would also be worth looking on the course pages, as that often shows examples of student work as well.
I think there might be, yeah. And for journalism people, have a look at Artifact, because there's a lot of student work there, and some of it's undergraduate work, some of it's postgraduate work, but it will give you a flavour of the kind of things that students do. It's not final major projects, but some of it is quite long form, so it'll if nothing else, you will understand that there's an incredible diversity of approach and subject matter that students address. It's artifactmagazine.co.uk, so easy to find.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then final question for the evening. Are there opportunities to collaborate with students from other courses?
Yes, there absolutely are. So we have the collaborative unit I mentioned, which sometimes, depending on how the courses choose to run it, there are sometimes opportunities within that. But there are lots of extracurricular opportunities. I mentioned the magazine that I did with MA students. So there are things of that kind. We also there are also lots of student generated projects, students making zines or making films, and they put notices up on the notice board saying, I'm looking for a designer, I'm looking for a this or a that. So those opportunities exist at different levels.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And with that, we will conclude for the evening. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Simon, for such an in-depth presentation. It was really insightful.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes, yeah. And I will end the webinar now. So thank you very much.